The drama surrounding Enoch Burke continued yesterday when, following chaotic scenes at his Court of Appeal hearing, his brother was charged with threatening, abusive and insulting behaviour. I'm joined on the line by Shane Phelan, Legal Affairs Editor with the Irish Independent. Good morning, Shane.
Morning, Pat.
Now, you were in the court when this disturbance started. What happened? What was your reaction?
The court was given a ruling on an appeal by Enoch Burke against various High Court orders, and the judge was dealing with one of those orders, and it was becoming clear that he was dismissing the appeal in relation to one of those orders, and Ammi got to her feet. Ammi Burke is a solicitor and a sister of Enoch Burke. She started shouting at the judge. Hard to know exactly what she was saying. The words constitutional rights were said a couple of times. The judges, there was three of them, got to their feet and left the courtroom after Ammi Burke refused to sit down. So we were left kind of sitting there waiting to see, will they come back out or whatever. And then 5 minutes later they did, and the presiding judge, the president of the court, Mr Justice Birmingham, he said, look, I'm going to attempt to continue reading out my ruling here, but if there's any further disruption, we're just going to rise and release the judgment electronically. So things quietened down for another few minutes. The judge was dealing with a second part of the appeal, and I suppose it was becoming clear that what direction the judgment was going in at this stage, that this too was going to be dismissed. And the judge made some remarks. He said that Enoch Burke had made offensive comments during the appeal, and that he wondered whether or not these were an exercise in creating soundbites. And it's fair to say, Pat, that at that stage all hell broke loose in the courtroom, stuff that I've never seen the like of, and I'm doing this for a good few years now. Enoch Burke was the first to get to his feet, shouting, "This is a disgrace, Judge." I can only describe it as a cacophony of noise from the Burke family. They were all sat close to each other, so you had at a front bench you had Enoch Burke. He was flanked by Ammi Burke and Isaac Burke, and then the bench behind them you would have had Sean and Martina, the parents, and Simeon, another one of the siblings.
Yeah. Now, where were you sitting in relation to them?
I was sitting directly behind the parents and Simeon Burke.
Okay, so you had an absolute bird's eye view of the action.
That's it, yes. So they're all standing, they're all shouting. There's a variety of things being shouted up at the judges. I suppose the most colourful of them coming from the mother, Martina, who she was repeatedly shouting, "You are bowed prostrate at the altar of transgenderism," and variations of that, almost in a chant over time. The judges got up and left. There was a number of guards in the courtroom. I'm not sure exactly how many were there as the ruling was being read out, but quite quickly I looked up and I could see there was at least 10 in the courtroom afterwards, and there were Burke family members were asked quite politely, to leave the courtroom, and they refused. And this is where things kind of went on to another level. There were scuffles, struggles, chaotic scenes. The guards effectively grappling with family members. The Burkes were holding on to anything they could hold on to. They were holding on to benches, tables, each other. They were shouting at the guards, calling them disgrace, calling them thugs. "Get your hands off my father, get your hands off my mother, get your hands off my brother," and so on. Ammi Burke was the first to be ejected. A few guards had grappled with her and really dragged her out of the courtroom, I suppose. And then Simeon Burke was taken out. Now, I remained in the courtroom and I saw footage later. He was effectively held in the air by 3 guards coming out of the courtroom. And after that, the parents were taken out one by one, and they didn't go quietly. Enoch Burke himself was holding on to a bench as if for dear life. You could see his hands, the knuckles on his hands were white from holding on to the bench. He appeared to cut his hands off one of the tables during all this. I think it took about 4 guards to get him out of the courtroom, and Isaac Burke then would have been the last of the family to be taken out, and he was effectively dragged by 2 guards, his legs dragging along the ground and out the door. And it kind of continued a little bit for a while outside. Simeon Burke was taken away in a Garda vehicle and brought to the Bridewell Garda station, and we soon after got a statement from the guards saying that a male had been arrested for public order offences and detained at the Bridewell Garda station. And then a short while again after that, Simeon Burke actually appeared in the district court. And
now he was offered bail. €200 payment would have got him out, but I'm no criminal, said he.
Yeah, he actually ended up being charged with engaging in threatening, insulting, and abusive words and behaviour. He in the district court, he described the proceedings as shameful. Refused to sign the bail bond. So look, he could easily have been at liberty. But instead he was carted off into custody overnight, and he's been remanded to appear again at Cloverhill District Court next Tuesday. And he claimed in court that he had been unlawfully arrested, treated shamefully and disgracefully by the Gardaí. He said he was shocked and shaken to the core, that he'd gone to the Court of Appeal, as every citizen has a right to do. And during this, the president of the court had made horrific statements about transgenderism, justifying why transgenderism should be shoved down the throats of people in this country, not only in schools but in universities. So Simeon is one of the younger members of the family. He's actually studying to be a barrister at the moment, studying at King's Inns. So it'll be interesting to see what impact this whole affair has on the trajectory of his career after this.
Now, this has been an long-running saga at this point, with various members of the Burke family erupting in a court at various stages. Have you ever seen the like of this before as a legal affairs correspondent, Shane?
I haven't, Pat. I mean, I think it's the first time I've ever seen anything quite as bad as this. You do see disturbances from time to time. As was kind of mentioned earlier on, I was sitting right behind where all this was happening, and Frank Graney, your own correspondent, was sat beside me, and the two of us ended up having to put our feet up against the bench in front of us to stop it from toppling over. I was only thinking back now, just how crazy that is, that you go to a court and that this sort of thing just breaks out in front of you, and you actually have to, do something to stop yourself, from, getting a belt of a bench or whatever. Like you don't go to court expecting to see that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. You see, some eminent judges who, to my mind, have incredible patience. Judge Brian O'Moore in the other court and George Birmingham. I'm just thinking that if you had a gang of shoplifters who started to raise hell in a courtroom, how much patience the judges would have with them. And, the Burkes, coming from, a family with legal education and so on, behave in this manner. I mean, you'd imagine that the judges would have no patience, because these are people who should know better. I would have imagined they'd be done for contempt of court and not allowed back in until they purge their contempt.
Yeah, I think it's been a feature of all of this past since the whole controversy erupted last August, is the level of patience that has been given, and due process as well, I suppose. Enoch Burke has been given every opportunity to purge his contempt. He's been given every opportunity to make the arguments that he has made again and again and again. There is no doubt, I think, that members of the judiciary have gone out of their way to facilitate them and to ensure that that they get every opportunity to, or that Enoch has been given every opportunity to use the courts, and in fact, quite quickly as well. I mean, variously, members of the family have variously criticised the courts for not being quick enough in dealing with matters. But in my experience, various elements of this case have rattled on very, very quickly when you compare them with other litigation that you see in the court.
Yeah.
But it has posed something of a conundrum for judges. They would expect people, who come into their courtroom and seek to avail of the courts to behave in a certain way and to have, respect and show some deference to the courts. And when that doesn't happen, then it's a real head scratcher for the judges.
Yeah.
How do they deal with things? Even yesterday, Mr Justice Birmingham, said that, look, I'm reading this out because, I want justice to be done as publicly as possible. It had been open to the Court of Appeal to simply just issue its judgment, to cut and run almost, but they opted not to do that, and they were going to be there to answer questions and tidy things up once the ruling has been read out, but they never got that opportunity, of course.